brought home a python without even asking me, saying it's always been his childhood dream, but now it's become my worst nightmare, and I'm not sure our marriage will survive. For 3 years, we had a corn snake. Small, calm, and honestly kind of sweet once you got used to him. My husband had owned reptiles his whole life, so I always understood that was part of who he was. I'm not a reptile person by nature, but I respected it. I learned to feed the corn snake. I even named him. When he died last October, we were both genuinely upset. My husband cried. I held him. We agreed we'd get another snake eventually. Something small, maybe a milk snake this time. I said that sounded fine. 2 months later, my husband pulled into the driveway holding a large ventilated box. I assumed it was a package. I walked over to help carry it, and he pulled it back slightly and said, "Just so you know, it's not what you're expecting." Then he opened the flap. It was a Burmese python, already 6 feet long. I stood in the driveway and stared at it. He started talking immediately, how it had always been his dream, how he'd done research, how they were docile when handled correctly, how this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He said it so fast, like he'd rehearsed it, like he knew exactly what he was walking into and had prepared his defense in advance. That should have been my first clue. I have generalized anxiety disorder. I've managed it for years, and for the most part, it doesn't run my life, but I want to be honest about what the next 4 months look like. I stopped sleeping properly within the first 2 weeks. I'd lie awake listening for any sound from the other room, convinced the enclosure had come open. I started locking our cat in the bedroom every night. She scratches at the door and meows until 2 or 3 in the morning. My husband eventually moved to the couch because he said he couldn't take the noise. So now I'm alone in the bedroom, awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, while he sleeps 20 feet away from a snake that gets bigger every single month. I brought it up carefully. I told him about the sleep. I told him about the cat. I explained that Burmese pythons reach 18 feet and live 20 years, and I didn't know how our house could accommodate what this animal was going to become. I told him the food costs were already cutting into our savings. I said I wanted children someday, and couldn't figure out how to think about raising a baby in the same house as an 18-foot snake. I said all of this calmly. No ultimatums. I was trying to have a real conversation. He told me I was being dramatic, said I didn't care about his happiness, accused me of being biased against animals that weren't cute and cuddly. That one actually stung, because I had genuinely liked his smaller snakes. I used to sit with the corn snake in my lap while I watched TV. I wasn't afraid of reptiles. I was afraid of this specific animal. At this size, in our house, with our cat, with our finances, with the life we were supposedly building together, that's not irrational. That's just reality. But he wouldn't hear it. Every conversation ended the same way. He'd accuse me of trying to take something from him. I'd back down. Nothing changed. Then I started asking questions because the story didn't add up. In September, he told me he wanted a milk snake. Small, manageable, totally reasonable. Then in November, he comes home with a 6-foot Burmese. I asked how that happened. He said he saw it at a reptile expo and made a spontaneous decision. I let that sit, but something kept bothering me. The animal was already 6 feet long. That's not an impulse buy. That's an arrangement. So I asked him again, directly. I told him to tell me the truth about how he got it. He admitted it. He had been in contact with a private breeder for weeks before the purchase, while he was telling me he wanted a milk snake. While I was nodding along at the dinner table, saying that sounds fine, asking what colors milk snakes came in, he was already negotiating the deal online. He knew exactly what he was getting. He knew I would say no if he told me, so he didn't tell me. He made the decision, arranged everything, and showed up with a done fact and a prepared speech. He lied to me, deliberately, for weeks. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I went into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and thought about who I had married. I thought about every conversation we had during those weeks where he looked me in the eye and said nothing. I thought about the version of him I believed I knew, the one who made decisions with me, not around me. Then I packed a bag and drove to my mother's. I called him from her driveway and told him I'd come home when the snake was gone. He texted me that night, said I was letting a snake ruin our marriage. I read it twice, put my phone down, didn't respond, because that's not what's ruining it.